And we're live.
Good evening, ladies, gents, and everyone else who's watching. It is episode 40.
Boo!
Unnecessary. Have a word with yourself. It is episode 47 of that 6+++ show. And we are here because you may have noticed there's a pretty great ability that's floating around. It used to be just one army that had this effect. And now it feels like it's every army, or at least every Imperium army. That's right. It's Agents of Vect, or whatever you want to call it, whichever version you've got in your codex. And it's fantastic. But it's not fantastic if you don't know what you're doing with it. So we're going to talk about what the best stratagem to use against some of the top armies are, some of the middling armies, some of the armies that we've just whacked in for the fun of it. I did nix Votan. I said you're not going to see them, so we're not talking about that. But before we get into it, Chris, how has your week been?
It has been very free of Warhammer.
Unacceptable.
Nice, disgraceful. It's my final week of school, and then I've got the summer holidays coming ahead. So I have done no painting, no building, but I do have some Shadow Spectres on the way.
Very nice.
For the Eldar, because I'm going to do doing this little event at Tabletop Republic in a couple of weeks, and then the weekend after I'm going to go to Leeds. So going to do a couple of events with the Eldari whilst they're still relatively strong. So,
while they're busted OP, I'd like to get some internet points.
So yeah, we'll go and see if I can scrounge a 2-3 or 3-2 of them at a couple of events.
I don't want to be mean, but if you're only getting 2 3s and 3 2s with this rule book, with the ability of play that you have, I think you should be having a word.
Well, I'm going to try really hard.
Yeah, you're a pretty good player, Chris.
I've only played 6 games of 10th so far.
I'd say you're in the top 100 players I've ever played.
Thank you. That means a lot because you're an absolute slut. So you.
I have played many games. So witty put downs aside, how are you doing, Davey?
Oh, I am fantastic. Yeah, so good right now. Oh, so good right now. So good right now.
Is this anything to do with when you said before we went live, I just got to have a sniff? Referring to your nose.
I've had a cold, and it's finally gone, but I've still got like the occasional big howker that I need to pull up.
Sure, no, that's fine. I was just confused. You seem to turn into a robot and/or Hi Davey, but
no.
I'm here for any of them.
Yeah, I'm just an AI voice. Just of energy.
To be fair, your background is looking a little bit blurry. You could be one of those, AI generated streamers.
He's a lover of the blur.
That's it, man. That's it. AI generated stream. Yeah, that's weird shit, right? Yeah, things are good. I went to teams at the weekend. That was cool. First proper team event. Not discounting Faustus. Faustus was great. # won it. But this one was teams at Birmingham. No, at Element Games in Stockport. A lovely place to drive to. Really enjoyed it. But the event itself was pretty good. You'll hear us talk a lot more about that on next week's show, as we have Tom here for that one, and potentially Jack and Lee as well. It was really, really good. We did okay. We did bang average, as is on brand. We didn't take the most memey stuff, which you're all very proud of, and like the smell of our own farts for doing so. But it was good.
As a result, coming out of that, 2 Eldari players who are sat here.
yeah, absolutely. But I learned a lot about teams. I learned a lot about what I should be taking and stuff. So I had a good conversation with a couple of people up there on Tyranid. So Adam Lane, big shout out to him. He was a lovely, lovely man with just a beaming smile. What a nice person. And I was talking to him briefly about what he was testing for stuff. And yeah, so I've been playing around. I had a game with Jack just now with some different Tyranid stuff, and it was good fun, really interesting. But yeah, today's topic actually came out of the team's event, because going into team's events, I've never used a vect in 10th, and I just put in the chat of our team chat like, hey, what should I vect? And then it all just kind of reeled out from there. Everyone's like, do this, do that. And we thought, hey, everything is content. So we decided to talk about it.
Are you trying to imply that we're starved for ideas?
No, we're not. We're not starved for ideas. We just thought this was hot shit that you, the consumer, wants to consume as soon as possible.
Very nice. Very smooth. Fantastic. And hello
Phantasm.
to everyone. Yeah, Phantasm. We'll be getting to that one. Hello to everyone in the chat there. I can see we've got Chris joining us. Obviously, we'll probably be seeing him on camera next week, as David was saying, for the roundup of the teams event and sneak preview. In 3 weeks' time, I believe we're hitting the 50th episode. Tune in for that one. I believe we're talking about some potentials. I don't want to make any promises. Maybe a giveaway. But we'll have to see. It might not be something physical. It might be someone's time. But we'll see. There are a few ideas floating around in the chat.
Might be a prawn cracker. You don't know.
Yeah. We've got Jack Tight in the chat as well. Constant frenemy of 6++. Hope you're doing well. As for myself, I have been busy because I'm off the Eldari train because it doesn't feel super worthwhile playing them. Taking them to an event, going 3-0. Admittedly, it was like a smaller event. I didn't have the most meta opposition up until the last game, where we were both frazzled, but it didn't feel massively like I was playing 40k. It kind of felt like I was turning up and be like, I would like some points, and then Davey's not uploaded them to the ITC, so I don't even get anything from it. So at this point, what are you going to do? So I've got something else in the works that I am not allowed to talk about because it's not my list that I've been testing. It's someone else's list. So gonna wait until we get. I think probably list lock. I can probably talk about it. But I've got to get an entire. I've got to get.
Testing friends.
Testing friends. Testing for my friends.
Yeah, not a name drop. It's just me and someone from Team Ignite. Don't worry about it. But I've got 2.5 weeks now to build, paint, practice an entire new army. So because I'm nothing if not a glutton for punishment. That is the plan. But it's going to be good times. All right, Content King. How are we looking this week?
Well, index in depths, we have been firing them out at a moderate pace. So since we last spoke, as I frantically hit the YouTube button, we've got all of Davy's World Eaters ones, which we spoke about last time, but we've now got a couple more of Tom's up. We've got Blood Angels, and we've got Eldari. So we've put those two out. We've got Chaos Knights in the pipeline. Isn't that right, Ed?
We have, yeah. And I definitely didn't have to send it to you again because you didn't have the files anymore.
Basically, I get sent files from every angle. Sometimes it's WhatsApp, sometimes it's like mail, sometimes it's the wrong email, isn't it, Davey? Either way, we get sent in a variety of ways. I totally forgot that I had just this link on WhatsApp from Ed, so I went to do it and I was like, oh, we transfer. Oh, it's expired. Excellent. So we've got that. We've got that to come out. I am very shortly about to be on summer holidays, so then I will start churning them up. But no, it's going all right at the moment.
Excellent.
Hopefully, might be able to do some battle reports soon, some bite-sized bat reps, because that would we haven't done any of those for a while. So
no, it's almost like all the people who do them have been really busy with their job because they tend to be working seasonal, maybe in education. But that is coming to a close. We are reaching the summer holidays, and there will be no more excuses. I'm not signing myself up to do it. I'm just here to, get digs in because that's much easier than having to do the hard work yourself. So, without further ado, as we said in the chat, it would really help with engagement if you drop us a like, if you spam silly comments about how Davy's an AI streamer. Chris is the most handsome man here, and I don't know what I'm talking about. Any of these comments would be great just to try and get us more on the front pages of YouTube. Let's talk about... Yeah, God, deleted. We've been shadow banned. Lovely. So, Vect. This is a stratagem I believe first rocked up in 8th edition. I did manage to skip 6th and 7th. So if I'm wrong, someone in the chat, please do correct me. It's the easiest way to get someone to tell you if you're wrong. Just confidently state, it first happened in 8th edition. And if I'm wrong...
You do this so often. I love it, Ed. It's like it's your brand. I'm going to make a really blanket statement here. Prove me wrong.
See, it doesn't matter if you're correct. All you have to do is say it confidently and then roll with that.
Yeah, man. Hot takes get clicks, man.
Absolutely. I've seen that YouTuber life. I know what I'm talking about. So, on to the actual thing that we're here to talk about, Agents of Vect. As I understand, it first came about in the 8th edition Drukhari Codex, which was, I believe, initially 2 CP, and that read, let me just find it here for you. It's a full book of text, but basically, you roll a d6 after your opponent has used a stratagem. On a 1, nothing happens. Your opponent's stratagem goes off. You've paid the 2 CP. Sucks to be you. On a 2 to 5, your opponent's stratagem doesn't go off, but they get their CP refunded. It's not too bad. If you roll a 6, then you cancel their stratagem and they don't get their CP back. This was fairly backbreaking. And yeah, as Rob says in the chat, 4
Spoilers.
CP at the end of the edition. Was it 2 at the beginning? I had Vect happen to me multiple times from Rob, but I think I've blocked it out, to be honest. I don't remember if it was all that often or not. Anyway, moving on to 9th edition Drukhari, and it became the thing that we have now, basically, which was a case of you pay a CP cost, and then it becomes more expensive for your opponent to use a stratagem the next time that they
Was
use
it ever free?
That does ring a bell, doesn't it?
Ringing the bell. It was a
Yeah.
0 CP strat.
I think you might be right. I think it might have been 0 CP and nerfed to 1 or 2.
Did you you needed to take a certain character or a detachment, right?
You had to have a Cabal of the Black Heart
Heart,
detachment,
yeah.
which I think was just always the right thing to do, honestly. In 9th edition, you could do a real space raid and you still got access to it, I believe. They could do some shenanigans with the detachments there. But vague history lesson aside, and please do correct me if I'm wrong on any of those points, we're now into 10th edition. And it's not just Drukhari who have it, although Drukhari do still have it, although theirs is now not a stratagem, it's on the data sheet of their Archon. There's a few armies that have got it, namely, off the top of my head, I can think of the Swarmlord for Tyranids. There's the Caladius Assassin, who is open to any Imperium unit. The Deathwatch have the Watchmaster who can do it. What else have we got? I'm sure there's more in there. Any more coming to mind?
Did you say GSC?
GSC, yes, of course. They can do it on one of their... is it their Nexus? Maybe one of their characters has the ability. Basically, you're going to be seeing a lot of it. And it's not unlikely that you have it in your army. So, what sort of stratagems should we be targeting? Let's just start with the armies that we've been playing. So I'm going to go to you first, Chris. Eldari, what's the best stratagem that you can use Agents of Vect on, the Vect effect? Keep in mind that it doesn't affect it the first time, so you don't want to use a big hitter, but it does for every subsequent use.
Yeah, so I think when we'll end up covering this, but it's going to be some armies have a very clear one stratagem that they're going to be looking to use kind of every turn, and that's the one where you want to try and cause problems for them. Other times it's not particularly the army or the faction, it's more like the list itself and what the list is trying to do. In the case of Eldari, pretty much all builds at the moment will be using every single turn Phantasm. It is David Gale, I believe, thinks it's the most broken stratagem ever printed. So that kind of goes some way to say how strong it is. For those who don't know, Phantasm is the stratagem in which you, at the end of the movement phase, your opponent's movement phase, where they basically can say, right, well, I am now going to move a unit 7 inches. Well, 7 inches. And it means it just has so much potential. You can use it aggressively to gain movement. You can use it defensively to hide something or stop a charge from happening. Units deep strike down and you're like, not today. And you just get to do it every turn for 1 CP. There is no reason why you wouldn't, especially when every Eldar list is getting a CP a turn and then also getting an extra CP a battle round from their Autarch Wayleaper. So one of those CP is always on Phantasm. I can just assure you. You just do it. There's no reason realistically not to do it in the Eldar list. So that is the one you're going to be using, and that's the one you're going to be wanting to Vect. I have played Tom before, and he vected Fire and Fade straight away as soon as I used it. And I think some Eldar lists definitely want to use Fire and Fade aggressively. And when Fire and Fade becomes 3 CP, you don't really want it.
That's your entire battle round's worth of CP,
Yeah,
even with a character to farm you more.
Yeah, but so if you've got two Vex, for example, through different sources, then maybe that would be the other one. But generally, Fire and Fade is a bit of a nice one to have. I personally only ever really use it just to try and get my Wolf Spiders behind enemy lines and that sort of thing, if it's necessary.
Yeah, it's the free movement, right? So I saw someone do a similar one with the Tau Fire and Fade just to get land on an objective that they couldn't quite reach.
Yeah, exactly that.
So
But
it
it's
can be super good in that sense.
far more niche, and the chances of you using it regularly are far less, especially because it's 2 CP. But Phantasm, all day, every day. So if you ever play Eldar, as soon as they hit that Phantasm, fire off that effect.
Yeah, just a sidebar. They really could have printed Phantasm at 2 CP and Fire and Fade at 1 CP, and you still wouldn't use Fire and Fade, and you'd still slam Phantasm probably 3 turns out of the 5. Just the positional, being able to react to your opponents is so strong. Just to really contextualize why it's so powerful, if you look at all of the stratagems that other armies have that let you move, it's all just a case of someone's moved within range of me, I will then make a reactive move. So you've got to do it after that unit ends in range of you, so your opponent can bait out the move and then move another unit closer, or you don't get to see the full picture before you move it. Often it's a D6 roll, unless you're in a certain doctrine, or if you're a certain unit or role. So it's quite a step up. The only one in my mind that compares is the Grey Knight one, which sure, it's when you move close to the unit within 9 inches, but you get to put it in deep strike. I think that is a comparable level of power, although I'd still take Phantasm over it every day of the week. But it's just insane. For 1 CP, it's still very good at 2 CP. And I think that's one of the things that Vect is really nice for. Sure, making your opponent not use a good strat because it costs too much, it's fine. Making your opponent use 2 CP every turn for their incredible strat is very good, because that is taking 2/3 of their CP resources, or if you can kill their warlord, it makes it almost unusable, but still worth sinking all their strats into, their CP into. Lovely stuff. We have got a couple of people in chat there. Brian saying, debating on whether to include Cypher in your CM list. I think that's probably worthwhile. I had forgotten about Cypher, but he's also a lone operative, which is, I think I've said before, the 3rd most broken keyword in the game. Maybe it's the 2nd. It might actually be the 2nd. It's just if you can take it, absolutely do. Lewis says, to go alongside Vex, I think there needs to be a clarification if you can use free strats of fire captains multiple times. What's the London Open rule on that one? I believe you just can't. I think there were some weird rulings from the Tacoma Open. I didn't look at it myself, but I did see Mikey's clickbait face. Tacoma Open using what rules, or something along those lines. So I trust his ability to sniff out something worth talking about. Onto yourself, Davey. Obviously, Tyranids do have access to Vect. That's really one of the few things that Eldari don't get, their own Vect, which is probably for the best. But Tyranids do have Vect. But in your book, what would you say is the best stratagem to make more expensive?
I mean, for sure, the 5 up feel no pain when you're in Synapse. It's 6 up when you're outside of Synapse, but then when you're in Synapse, it's 5 up feel no pain. And obviously, if you've got the Hive Titan, you're doing that twice a turn, which is super nice. Yes. Definitely did that a lot this weekend. So that would be my number 1, really. And there isn't a number 2, really. The other ones are so situational. It's really nice to auto wound on 5s with Adrenal Surge, I think it's called. It's really nice to bring back Gaunts if you've got a list like that. But not everyone has a list like that. So the number 1 you want to watch out for if you've got this ability and you're playing against Tyranids is the 5 of Feel No Pain.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't been keeping up with NIDS over the last couple of weeks, but the initial testing and sort of lists that I know you were looking at especially were very monster heavy. So I think the Feel No Pain really gets the most value in that sort of list, and we'll have to see how they adapt. Have we seen any lists with sort of Gaunt carpets yet, or is that not really popping up much?
No, we've seen some combined arms.
Sure.
So that's one of the ones, but yeah, it's definitely on the menu. Let's say that. I don't know about a carpet, but I think that there's such a good plethora of units that literally, as you were just talking, right? So you've got gargoyles that are doing moving after shooting. just as part of the data sheet, 6 inches. Termagants that'll move D6 when you move within 9 inches of them. So there's a lot of junk. I really enjoyed that part of playing against Jack actually today, like just being able to do some, Tyranid used to be able to do mortals in every turn. Now we can kind of just move. Now we can just kind of move in every turn if you include bringing back Termagants and Gargoyle, things like that. I can find movement in the command phase. I can find movement in the movement phase. I can find it in the shooting phase. And I can find it in the charge phase. So it's quite nice.
That is, movement wins games. So it's a really good ability to have. It needs to be backed up by damage, as we've seen from Grey Knights, but it is a fantastic tool to have in your toolkit. So I think that is a great shout, depending on what sort of list your opponent's bringing. I will, because we've already talked about Eldari, I will quickly talk about Chaos Knights, which I've been having a lot of fun playing. I've been testing I think it's 10 War Dogs, so 6 Brigands, 3 Carnivores, 1 of the Stalkers, who's the Warlord, because you've got to have one, and then 2 units of Min Flamers, Changeling, and Kairos Fate Weaver, who turns out an absolute beast. His ability to indirect fire is... He hits on 2s natively. He's AP3, so you just go, I don't really care. I'm going to be hitting on 3s. I'm going to be, AP -2 is still very good in this edition. So he just slaps models from behind wall. Great Marine killer if you have to deal with Marines. But they've got some pretty good strats in their book. So the first one is the thing that I think a lot of people wanted to build around in 9th edition when they got the Chaos Knights book. And House Korvax, which had no good rules, apart from they had a stratagem which lets you walk through walls. And that is what I would be vecting if I was playing against Chaos Knights. It's called Knights of Shade. And you can either move 1 large knight, your Abominant, Desecrator, what have you, through a wall, or 2 War Dogs, which is obviously just fantastic value to be able to shift them through the walls there. Not only can you do it in the movement phase, you can do it in the charge phase. So if you're playing a list that's got 4 or 5 Carnivores maybe, you very well might be seeing your opponent slam that down with both of their CP in a turn. That might be what they go for. The offensive buffs are nice. Like if you had a second one, you could Dread Hounds, which gives you exploding hits, but really you just want to be walking through walls and saying, you didn't think I could get you. I absolutely can.
Surprise!
Yes, surprise! Kool-Aid man through the door. It's yeah, absolutely, as we were saying before the stream, because we are children.
Yeah.
But that is what it is. Lovely. So yeah, Chaos Knights is a great one. I will just mention here for knights, if you're using big knights, especially if your opponent has multiple big knights, Tank Shock can be quite a nasty one. It's just it's not a guaranteed, but it's as near as makes no difference. They're going to be doing 6 mortal wounds to you on the charge, especially if they're still running Hector Rex, whatever he was called. Not Hector Rex. Lord Hector. Canis Rex. There we go. I've combined his 2 names. Lovely. All right. Perfect. Moving on. Does anyone else have any that they want to particularly go for next that they've played against, perhaps? Or should I just pick one out?
Well, just to catch up on that Knights piece. So I played Knights 3 times at the weekend, which was lovely. So much fun. Yeah, it was good actually. Well, it's funny actually. We got better at playing them every game that went past. I was like, oh, okay, I learned something new every time. So it's good. Started with a loss, then I got a win, then I got a draw. So I was quite happy with that.
Hold on, I got better. One.
No, but then I think my last opponent was like
okay,
good,
sure.
But I managed to eke it out. So one of the interesting things to Vect was because of my army composition, and again, like what Chris was saying before, like it depends on what army you're playing. A lot of my units had like toughness 12, and the reason why you did take toughness 12 is because it's very difficult to wound it. So as soon as a knight player can play the Squire stratagem, I can't remember what it's called, something of the Squire, and you can just pick a bunch of armigers to shoot at a unit, and they get +1 strength and +1 AP. So all my armor save is 2 up, and that puts that AP on a 5, and it also wins by 3. So absolute disaster. So I vected that so that they couldn't do that every turn, which was quite nice. But I can also see a world where, if you're Tau or something like that, and you're going to try and focus down shots, or if you're Marines and you're going to try and focus down shots at a knight, when you're rerolling all your hits and all your wounds, and they go, I guess I'm going to have a 4-up invuln when they rotate. It's quite nice to vect that, I imagine, there. So I think Imperial Knights are a bit of a funky one because they've got different use cases, and it really, really they've got like quite a good flexible range of stratagems.
Yeah, no, that's a great shout. That's exactly what Chris was saying earlier. Like, it depends on the army that you're playing. There are absolutely multiple for Imperial Knights that you might want to vect. The obvious one being the 4-up rotate Iron Shields that you mentioned. In your case, where you're running a lot of T12 and they've got strength 12 weapons, that Knights of the Squire that you said, where it gives them the extra strength and AP, really great shout. Makes you a lot more survivable. It's almost like popping a feel no pain, but you don't have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make them spend the resources as well. Yeah, no, perfect.
Problem is they gain loads of CP as well, so it's
only if they kill you Warlord. Which, I mean, to be fair, against Tyranids is not easy to hide because he's not exactly screened out, is he? Okay, fair play, fair play. You've got me there. Lovely stuff. Well, let's move on to, why not? Let's talk about Drukhari, the progenitors of Vect. They've got a couple of great strats. Anyone got any thoughts on what they'd be vecting against Drukhari? Anyone who's played against them?
I have played against them twice, and they didn't really use many stratagems. So, but based off our research, you could consider Fire and Fade on Lightning Fast.
Those are the two that I would go.
I think, yeah, Lightning Fast was the one that they used the most. You know, it's just 1 CP. When Eldar are trying to fire off their Bright Launches, and it's a 3 rerolling, turning it into a 4 rerolling obviously does help quite a bit. So there was the Lightning Fast in the shooty meta, where Drukhari are obviously a shooting army these days, and they've got some. They've got lots of rerolls and that sort of thing, but they want the ability to be able to use that shooting. So any opportunity for them to keep it alive is important. So Lightning Fast, but obviously having Fire and Fade, that is a really powerful strat used in the right hands.
Absolutely. As always, elf bullshit, making it harder to kill them, or well, it's just making them harder. They're less likely to die because you can't see them because they've Fire and Faded, or they are -1 to hit. So both fantastic choices there. I guess it does depend on your army.
Thank you to our token Australian in the team, Rob.
Token Australian. Oh God, he's not an equality hire. He's very good at the game. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're all putting our feet in it tonight. Lovely stuff. Well, we'll move on quickly. Let's distract everyone by talking about the big bugbear in the room that wields a stop sign, and it is in fact Genestealer Cult. Now, Genestealer Cult, everyone's favorite army to play against, even when they're not super OP. Everyone loves it, and it definitely doesn't drive them mad and make them have to think really, really hard. But for me, there are two that you would want to deal with here. The first one is Return to the Shadows, and that is at the end of your opponent's turn, spend 1 CP and put 2 units into strat reserve, and then they come back in. That is obviously pretty good because it lets you, when your units die, you bring them on as blips, really safe in the back of your line. In your opponent's movement phase, at the end of the movement phase, they come back, and then you go, cool, end of your turn, go into reserve. I'm going to come down where I want them to next turn. Sucks to suck, because now I have 2 more units that are just coming to absolutely blow you up, which is, just incredibly painful. Lewis, funnily enough, says, what would you guys vect against GSE and why? This is what we do. I should read comments more quickly. Thoughts on the positional play there? Is that one that you think you
can just keep turning it over, can't you? And as you say, like you take an army like Grey Knights, who a lot of people are really interested in because of that ability, and it's just so powerful to be able to move around the board, especially with the card situation, finding the weak spots. So yeah, that is obviously a spacey meatball.
Yeah, to your point there, Chris, like the amount of points you can score just by being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And anything that puts you in reserve, puts you in deep strike, gets free movement, seems to be a running theme of things that are powerful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's a good forerunner, and I am drip feeding these, and there's a good reason because option 2, one with the shadows. So after you target your opponent, and the people are apparently disagreeing on this one. I think that this means that the unit that shoots them first still gets to shoot them, but people seem to be under the impression that it actually stops you from targeting them. Effectively, what it does is after you have targeted a unit, once you have targeted a Gene Stealer cult unit, the Gene Stealer player uses the strat for 1 CP, and it gives them cannot be targeted outside of 12 inches and stealthy. I believe that means that subsequent units can't attack it. Some people believe that it means that if you're targeting it from outside of 12 inches, you don't get to target it and you have to pick another target. It's already incredibly strong, even if it's just the first case, which is the initial unit get to target it. We'll have to maybe see some clarification on that one. But that is, in a shooting meta, absolutely backbreaking, especially because you can bring it in with rapid ingress, and you can just come in 12.1 inches away and just say, you're not going to shoot me. How are you going to deal with this?
Yeah, I know that at the weekend they ruled it the other way to what you're saying, Ed. Because I remember standing next to Lee when he got his Desolation squad ready to shoot a squad.
Yeah.
And he was all ready. He was rubbing his hands together. He picked up the dice and his opponent went, nah.
Excellent. I disagree with that interpretation of it, but I guess currently it will be down to the tournament organizer. I will just say, Goodhammer writer Tom Loam, he played it the way that I'm saying, so got that as a notch in our belts there. So we'll have to see. We'll have to wait for a bit more clarification. It reads pretty clearly to me, but who can say? And then there's a third one for GSE, and this one, yeah, because obviously there is. Why would you only have 2? There's one called Coordinated Trap. Now it is 2 CP to start with. However, you select 2 Gene Stealer cult units that have not been selected to shoot or fight this turn, and they can only target a single unit. So you've got to put them into the same unit. I guess you can just target something that doesn't need to shoot if you're confident with the first unit killing it, but you get +1 to wound against that unit. So you can really bring the pain, because as we all know, GSE like popping up, unloading an unreasonable amount of shots at sort of like mid-strength, mid-AP, mid-damage. If you can dial that up to 11 by giving them not only, reroll hits perhaps from a character, all the other shenanigans they can get, +1 to wound, suddenly makes them vehicle killing units as well. So there's 3 there. One that makes them more killing, one that makes them more positional, and one that makes them harder to kill. Have you got any front runners for the armies that you 2 play? Because I think GSC really, really depend on what you're playing into them, to which of those 3 you want to vect.
Well, that's what I was going to say. When you've got those options, it is very much what works for you, and it's the ones that I haven't played GSC, so I guess I'd be
lucky boy.
I can't wait for that first experience and like an important point.
I think I've had 3 games.
But so from my perspective, I'm thinking, right, are they killing my stuff without the +1 to wound? So in my experience, my kind of Eldar lists I'm building at the moment are kind of like 15, 16 units which all can kill something. They've all got that output, but you can kill whatever you want really, because it's not really that big a deal. You've killed generally 80 to 100 points. So the +1 to wound thing is kind of are you going to die? Until I play GSC, I don't know whether they would just kill our stuff anyway. I can't say. But the not being able to shoot things unless I'm really close, that's quite annoying, because obviously a lot of the Eldar guns are kind of designed to be a bit further away. Blap, blap, blap. Send out your warp spiders to go score your cards and flame something to shit whilst you're blapping from the background. And you're tabled. That was a fun game. Thanks for the so just off the top of my head, I guess, that one. I think it would be the one where they can kind of keep coming. I don't know. In my mind, I'm like, well, the units will keep coming back anyway. And because you can string from the blip to wherever you want, basically, like, is the fact that don't they just get that positional aspect to an extent anyway, especially if they're dropping in your half and then
because they come down in
their half.
Because they come down at the end of your movement phase, I guess it's a little harder to do. They can't just sort of like daisy chain out into the open without fear of reprisal. They can, but they need to use a strat for it.
Yeah.
And they can only use the strat once, which is important to note.
What in the entire? No, per
No,
turn, right?
just when you target them. I
Yeah.
don't think they've got a way of using a strat. Oh no, there's a Nexus who they can use it twice, but they can only use it twice. So don't worry
'cause
about it.
Check that
If you know
Nexus
about
wording. If it says only
Yeah,
one Nexus in this
yeah,
army
one
or
Nexus.
whatever.
You can't do
Okay.
it on multiple. But of course, they do have the typical captain ability to use a strat at a time that's already been used for.
Lovely. So you get it for
Yeah.
free.
I can't remember if you do, but probably because that book is cracked. I do want to just say I think the book is incredibly well written. It's just tuned way too high. So I'm looking forward to maybe giving them a run out when they get nerfed a bit. That would be quite a lot of fun. But yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. You're spot on. With your Eldar list, Chris, things would just fall over, even if they use the +1 to wound strat or not. They absolutely don't want to be putting 2 units into one of yours. Your most expensive unit's probably like 150 points if we don't count the Yukon, because they're probably not going to be getting their hands on her, assuming that you've positioned reasonably well. But, so great shout there. I think it depends. Against a fast moving army, I would really like getting rid of the Return to the Shadows where they come back and they get positional play. Because if you can outposition them, I think that's your winning move. If you can really bring the pain down and keep them penned in a corner, that's probably the best way to go. All right, let's go for something a little bit lighter, something that people really enjoy playing against. We've got Necrons. Necrons, as everyone knows, are back to their early 9th edition glory, where you'd have an unkillable warrior brick and they just never die. Now it's Lich Guard, or warriors. You can do both, to be fair. You can give them a 4-up Feel No Pain, a 4-up Invuln, I believe. You can just make them incredibly frustrating to kill. You put the 2, what are they called? The little Canoptek buddies with the claws.
Oh,
yeah, lovely. 2 Crypt Thralls in a squad. They die first every time. You've got to slow roll all your attacks because they have, the mixed defense. Well, slow roll the save, so it's a really slow experience to get through. And then after that, they use a stratagem, and that stratagem is called, and it's a stupid name, so I've completely forgotten.
Protocol
of the Undying Legion. Thank you, Davey, saving my ass there. Basically, in your opponent's shooting or fight phase, after an enemy unit has resolved its attacks, you get to reanimate D3 wounds. If you've got a character in there, it's D3+1, and then you can do all of the other bullshit that Necrons can do at the moment, where you buff up the reanimations. I believe it ends up being something like D3+3 on the Lich Guard, twice a turn, because it only costs 1 CP. So you do it in their shooting phase, you do it in their fight phase, and you just make them unbelievably hard to chew through.
Because they're hard to shift from the start, right? The Lich Guard.
Oh yeah. But we've seen GSE players saying that it's taken them entire turns and entire armies to chew through 1 brick of models, which is pretty insane because that army has really, really high output. When I was playing Eldar, I wasn't super worried about it. I was like, I'll just decannon it to death. I'm sure that'll be fine. But now I think there might be some actual concerns because they've got some pretty chunky Feel No Pains there as well.
Yeah.
No need for discussion on that one, I guess. I think
that's the number 1, right?
Well, the current build is survive, isn't it? So
which is such a boring way of playing Necrons.
Anytime you can get through them, kind of make that less appealing to them or not as feasible. Then,
I just feel like that's the angle GW go down with them every time, right? Is like, how do we make these guys really sturdy? And it's like, oh man, no one wants to be the sturdy guy. There's no like superhero.
Hey, there's loads of really, really vocal Death Guard players who are just like, I just want to live, and then get tabled by any of the top factions because, oh my god, too many.
Yeah, but they kind of slap in combat. They've got some cool tools, but like, no one's like
that 10th edition phase that doesn't exist.
Well, you know what I mean. Oh, in 9th, in that, then at least.
Sure.
But like no one wants to be the Avenger that's like sturdy man, the man who doesn't die. Like his film would be rubbish, or his or her film would be rubbish.
Yeah, perfect. That's just throwing me off. No, sturdy man indeed. That is true. It's an incredibly incredibly boring way of playing Necrons, and it's why I shelved my Necrons in 9th edition. I was really excited for them to come back. I don't know if anyone was watching a couple of the early episodes, and I
Yeah, I
thought,
remember
oh,
that.
it's no longer the mildly inconvenient Tuesday
Tuesday
canon.
arcs are now good.
Yeah, woo! And then the rest of the rules came out. It's like, there's
Oh,
not really. You've got to have stuff leading it. So maybe when the codex comes out, there'll be some more interesting builds that I find appealing. But
Jack's
see.
put a good question in chat. Vect, does Vect affect 0 CP strats?
Yes, and that's more important when you've got an ability that makes your strats 0 CP, like the Space Marine Captain. The way that works, it's shown in the commentary. You set it to the value of 0, and then the modifier goes on. So it would become, say, for example, you used it on a 1 CP strat, it would become 2 CP, and then if a captain used it, it would still cost a CP to use. So you can't get around me making your strats cost more by just bringing captains. It's unacceptable behavior. I won't allow it.
The other thing you mentioned is Overwatch.
Sure.
Vecting Overwatch.
I think that is a great shout. It really depends on who you're facing against. If you are playing against an Imperial Knight player who has a Valiant,
Lewis,
or a Wraith Knight, which is maybe something that you'll see more of, to be fair. Now that you can only use a single fate die per turn, it's less scary, but it's still pretty terrifying.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone with lots of flamers as well.
Oh yeah. Flamers, D weapons, big flamers. I think that pretty much succinctly sums it up.
D weapons is an interesting title. Cool.
Yeah,
Move on.
D scythe, D cannons.
All right.
Yeah, get your mind out there.
Why? What were you thinking, Davey?
No, I think I might change my name from Swissley to D weapon. That sounds like a really cool.
It's just what your wife
pseudonym.
calls you. It's fine.
This is that 2002 AIM username that you always wanted. Lovely stuff. Well, it is a fitting time. Let's talk about Tau. And I know that 2 were suggested by our resident Tau expert himself, but I actually disagree. So he said stim injectors and strike and fade. I think strike and fade is a fantastic ability. And to be fair, I haven't played much 10th edition Tau. I haven't played it any myself, and I haven't played against much, but I just see strike and fade as being sort of the seminal Tau ability. You want to bring your guns to bear, and then you want to be not shot back, and then especially in a shooting meta, that's usually very important. But the stim injector, it's only a 6-up feel no pain. I don't know if that moves the needle for me. If I'm picking a single stratagem to turn off, I don't know if a single 6-up feel no pain makes enough difference for me, especially because the first time they pop it is probably the most value they're going to get out of it, unless they just sort of use it frivolously on a small unit, and then you go, haha, now I can kill your big unit and make it harder for you. What are your thoughts on those ones, chaps?
Is it 2 CP to start with? The 6? No, the 6 plus fill up in is 1 CP and fire
1
and fade
CP.
is
Strike and fade is 2, which I think if you price it to 3 becomes basically unusable.
Unusable. Yeah. I do think the value is there.
Yeah, out of those 2, I'd go strike and fade.
Yeah.
And that, as Jack says on the chat, he's spamming stim injectors. It's 1 CP, and why not?
That is fair. That is absolutely fair. I guess, maybe I'm just going to get more reps into Tau.
You shoot into them, you're like, is that 6-up? From you can see why the Tau player would just keep using it because the strats are crap, and why not?
Yeah.
But as the opposing player, are you probably going to kill the thing anyway, or does the 6-up skew the math enough? And
that's true. If I'm firing fire prisms into 6-wound battle suits because they've got double shield drones, then that actually probably does make a big difference. So fair play.
I think perhaps maybe Overwatch with Tau, especially when you're going from turn 4 onwards, like the exploding hits is pretty obnoxious.
That's true. That is true.
So I think it depends on maybe what you've killed, right? Or what you're planning to kill, etc. Like how you see the game panning out. Because if it's going to be a big fight turn 3 onwards, then maybe you are going to need to do that Overwatch one. But if you are going to, you think you can cripple them early doors, then maybe you just do that fire and fade so they can't get away from you, wiggle out of your grasp.
Absolutely. No escape from the Swizzly grasp. Sorry, that makes you sound Yeah, that's not what I meant. We'll move on. Custodes, the
Leave the
golden
toilet humor to
boys.
me, Ed.
Yeah. Ooh. So Custodes, they have got some insane stratagems. If it looked anything like 9th edition, where melee was good, I would say you'd want to use their Unwavering Sentinels, which is their stratagem that gives them fight first. An insane ability. Obviously, now whoever has fights first and it isn't their turn is the one who will hit first. So it's almost impossible for a melee army to deal with a Custodes army. You've got to get multiple charges off, and Lord help you if they've got, a Trajan who can give fights first, and then the strat to give fights first as well. You can make it very difficult to get the attacks through in the place that you want them to go through. However, we're not in 9th edition, we're in 10th edition, which is significantly less melee based. So I guess the one for me that really makes the difference is, and I've forgotten the name of it, Arcane Genetic Alchemy.
Yep.
-1 damage. -1 damage on a big brick of Wardens, a 10-man Warden brick, is so backbreaking for so many armies.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know the maths
on
on
a
it.
3-wound model as well, right?
4 if you give them shields.
4. Yeah,
4
man,
if they're
that's rough.
Terminators. Yeah. Suddenly you go from needing 2 damage weapons to kill a unit to maybe 3, maybe 4. It's
It's rough.
And when they're on a 1-up saving cover.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely brutal. They are very tanky to deal with. I guess the other one that you could go with was Slayers of Nightmares. If you're playing a vehicle heavy list, if you're playing Knights, for example, that is +1 to wound against vehicle or monsters in combat. Just makes it, because they don't generally have a great time killing vehicles natively. They're not too bad at it with their lethal hits, and some of their units get rerolls, yada yada. +1 to wound is a big, it moves the needle a lot when you're killing like a T12 model, I would say.
Yeah, the thing I like about doing it for Arcane Genetic Alchemy is the fact it's 2 CP to start with.
Yeah.
Putting that up to 3 CP is pretty brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes it very hard for your opponent to plan for. If keeping 2 CP is doable. You've just got to not do anything in your turn, and then it'll become your opponent's turn, and cool, I can use the stratagem. You have to not do anything in your opponent's turn, then your turn, and then your opponent's turn again. Unless you've got some way of generating CP, which, to be fair, I guess you can probably fit in. My brain's falling out my ears. I think maybe one of the Inquisitors can generate CP, but there's probably some way of doing it for Custodes, because they are the golden boys.
I mean, surely, what's his name? The big man,
Trojan.
Trajan. He can, you could in 9th you could use a stratagem and then he could get it back on a 4-up, right?
Yeah. I don't think he does now. Oh, Jack has a great point. He says vecting the resin model is nice if you have a high number of 1 damage weapons. I haven't played any armies that spam 1 damage weapons, so I haven't thought about that. But that is big. Just being able to resin model every turn for 1 CP is a huge value when all the Custodes models are like 50, 60 points. So
it's pretty good.
And
pretty good.
Bonus movement is always hilarious with that sort of stratagem. It was great with the Chaos Terminators back in 9th edition. It's great with everyone now. He also says Desolation Marines just as a standalone sentence, and I don't know what that means.
Well, he
Vect people.
But he understands 10th edition.
Yeah.
The statement is Desolation Marines. Given nothing else, the Marines kill. I see. So he's, I think, bemoaning the fact that Desolation Marines kill 5 fucking Custodian Guard in cover, because that is a reasonable thing to do. Rob says CP reroll can be great in low unit count armies. That might be true. I haven't played against any armies that spam out a CP reroll. It always felt like a trap to use, even when we had more CP back in 9th edition. It felt like a drain on your resources that often wasn't worthwhile, and you have to have a lot of discipline with not using it. But in an army that's trying to make a lot of long charges, perhaps, or has very swingy but high damage weapons, I could see that being the case. If you again, maybe the Valiant, and it's going to harpoon you every turn or something along those lines. There's probably a better example in there. As Jack said, Desolation Marines. Let's move on to the Adeptus Astartes. Have either of you played many games into Space Marines?
Yeah, man. Played two in Barcelona.
Ah, yes. Well, I'll not be cruel and ask you what strat names they were using, because they probably told you in Spanish, and that would be pretty unreasonable for me to ask you to translate on
Well,
the fly.
they actually just called it Armor of Contempt. Yeah.
Yes, Armor of
A
Contempt
lot
is
of the
absolutely
words
one of the front
they would
runners.
say things in Spanish and then all of a sudden just go to like, I don't know, invulnerable save. You know,
Yeah,
it's like
just
okay.
flinging in the English terms where there's no Spanish term for it. Yeah, absolutely. Armor of Contempt is a great one. This is probably if you're seeing a lot of Terminator bricks, which we might well see. But yeah, Jack is right in chat. It is indeed Storm of Fire. I would be slamming that down because every good Space Marine player worth his salt is going to be bringing 10 Desolation Marines. Not anymore. If you're running 15, stop. This is a PSA. Stop doing it. I don't want to have to spend the entire edition telling you that 15 is too many. 10 is the correct number. So you're gonna have 10 Desolation Marines in one squad, and you're going to attach a character with Bolter Discipline, so they're getting their exploding sixes, and then you're going to make them Devastator Doctrine either through adaptive strategy or through putting them in Doctrine just through your own ability, which gives them exploding hits on 5s, and then you're going to Storm of Fire, and that's going to give them ignore cover that they already have already because the data sheet is just busted, but it's also giving them AP1 as well, which makes them go from killing not that much to, oh god, this is unpleasant. Like I said before, they kill 5 Custodian Guard in cover equipped with spears. It is a truly, truly brutal ability.
Yeah, if they're not. Yeah, if they don't have the Desos, I think you don't necessarily need to go that way. But yeah,
If they don't have the
Desos,
Desolation Marines, you should probably just win.
yeah, there is also that, right? There is also that.
Yeah, to be fair, you could make an army without Desolation Marines. I don't know why you would, but I think the players
Because you have respect for the models you play, and you don't want to take stupid-looking models.
That's fair. That's fair. But if I come up against someone like that, I'm going to have a great time playing them, and then I'm going to feel very confident beating them, whether or not I vect the correct strategy or not.
Indeed. What about their dark side? What about the CSM end?
The CSM. Now, CSM have 2 really good stratagems. And the first one is the one that's probably the most frustrating, which is Dark Obscuration.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yes, it gives a unit stealth. That's fine. It's not that exciting. But all of the CSM strats, or not all of them, but 4 of them have an additional ability if you have a mark that corresponds. If you have the mark of Nurgle, it just gives them lone operative. You can't target them if they're more than 12 inches away. And yeah.
Yep.
How are you meant to deal with that?
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, and this is an army that absolutely wants to be rapid in grissing. They will take Abaddon, they will take their 10 Terminators, and they'll either walk them up the board, which they absolutely can do, or they'll bring them down in your turn, and they'll bring them in 12.1 inches away, and you then can't interact with them. And my god, they are some rip and tear boys when they get there. They are absolutely brutal.
The one I played a very lovely chap called Peter, and in teams this weekend, and he had nearly 1,000 points of obliterators. With 2 of them had the mark of Nurgle, one of them was undivided. And yeah, they just put them out in the open, and I was like, oh great, shoot these now. Nope. No.
Yeah, pain.
And they are damage 6, and they can do indirect fire once a game.
Yeah, obliterators are really good. Really good.
Rough, man.
Brian does bring up the second stratagem that you might consider vecting, which is Profane Zeal. So again, it's a hit roll of 1 and a wound roll of 1. That's not bad. But if you're Chaos Undivided, you get to reroll all hits and wounds.
That's right.
Now, I don't want to bang on on a broken drum in the addition of less rerolls. That's a pretty powerful ability, especially when you might not have as many anti-tank weapons if you're playing CSM as you might do as some of the other armies, such as Eldar with their strength 18 fire prisms. Being able to reroll hits and wounds is very strong. You might put that on Forge Fiends. You might put it on Obliterators, who can come down and just absolutely light something up. Or, again, you can put it on Abaddon because his squad has every keyword, because that he's champion of all the gods. I guess it makes sense, but my god, it is brutal. It is such a brutal combination. Hot take, Chris, out of those 2, which one do you want to get rid of more? Which one do you want to make too expensive to use?
I'm going to say the one where I can't shoot them, because I want to outshoot my enemy. I'm highly efficient at shooting. Sure, you can re-roll your hits and wounds. Great, cool. You can kill my 80-point hornet. I don't mind. But me not getting to shoot you and kill you, kill your 150-point unit with my 80-point unit. Well, that's sad times. So I would, I would be vecting that.
Some would argue that's balance, not allowing an 80-point unit to kill a 150-point unit.
Oh,
but I agree. I think it's
I
absolutely
respectfully disagree, but carry on.
Yeah, absolutely. No. I'm on your side. I just wanted to bring up that there is another point of view. I don't hold it. Some would say, not me, but
absolutely.
Davey, give me your thoughts on this one, Milan.
Yeah, same really. It again depends on so at the weekend I vected Profane Zeal because I had essentially 11 models because I was playing Tyranid Knights, right? So obviously I don't want them re-rolling wounds into my big boys. Whereas, and actually shooting wasn't a big part of my strategy in that game anyway. So if it comes down to if I've got a shooting army, if blah blah blah, Dark Obscuration is the most frustrating thing in the world because it's the whole flying hive tyrant again, right? With Overrun, they can interact with you, you can't interact with them. And
being able to put it on a squad that rapid ingresses, so you don't even get to move to counteract it. It's very much I've got nothing I can do other than screen this out. Is pretty brutal.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree. It's doing something in your opponent's turn as well that they weren't necessarily expecting. That hurts a lot more than something they can see coming.
I think it's called Infernal Rites, which is their Armor of Contempt. It already costs 2, and you make it cost 3. Not because that's and then you lose because Abaddon just walks up, comes in 12.18 inches away from 5 and charges 7, and you go, strat that they weren't going to use anyway.
Yeah.
Fantastic. What else have we got that's worth talking about? Deathwatch. Yeah, Deathwatch. I think there's 2. So Deathwatch can kind of do a similar sort of thing to Genestealer Cult. They've got an ability called Teleportarium, a strat called Teleportarium, where you pick up 1 unit. Or the way I'm reading it is I think you can use it on turn 1 in your opponent. Say they're going to Strat Reserve. That might just be wishful thinking. Strike, not into Strat Reserve, Deep Strike, and then bring them in wherever you want them to. You could just go, cool, I'm going to give a captain, and then turn 2, I'm just going to come down and put 4 units wherever the buffs. So they've got 3 different ammunition types. They've got Hellfire rounds, Kraken rounds, and that nobody's going to use, Dragonfire rounds. It's Kraken rounds. That's the one that's quite good. It increases the range of the weapons by 6 inches in the squad that you put it on. And again, it's 1 squad or 2 kill teams. And it increases the AP of their weapons by 1. Quite a lot of good weapons with an 18-inch range. I don't know if you can get hold of multi-melters, but if you could, that would make it so you could bring them in melter range. You could even put like Eradicators into Deep Strike and bring them in and extend their range, and suddenly you're putting some really powerful melter into like a big knight. That might be something you do. Lots of really strong applications for that one. Have you two got any thought about what you'd prefer to nerf? I guess it depends on the army you're playing against.
Yeah, I mean, I know Gaylord likes to talk about the powerful the Teleportorium one is just because it enables you to generate so many different angles, right? So I guess it'd be that one.
Yeah, I think so. I think the other one you can maybe get around by being in cover, but yeah.
I think there are ways to ignore cover with Deathwatch as well, but
probably.
I would say for me, I think the AP and range on a stick is more powerful, purely because Space Marines are quite expensive. So they're going to get 1 turn where they pick up units and put them in your back lines. But then do they have the units to do it a second time? That would be... It's something to consider that you're not maybe getting as much value the second time you use it, whereas all they have to do is have 2 units alive to get the full value out of the extra range and AP strat. So I might be tempted to go with that one, but I think both are really valid choices, and it depends what you're playing there. I guess we should do a couple more chaos ones. Let's do Demons and 1,000 Suns, and then we'll maybe wrap that up, look at some viewer questions, call it an early one, because I can see some.
I'll get the viewer questions. I'll have a look in Discord now. ahead of the game?
Well, I believe it was you that brought up the demon one. Can you remember the name of the demon strat? That
I can't remember. It's called Deep Strike within 3 inches. At 3 inches.
Yeah,
That's what it's
that
called.
was. If you couldn't remember, that was what I was going with. But yes, there is a stratagem that lets you deep strike over 3 inches away. As with all of those, obviously you can't charge afterwards because that would be insane. But being able to do that is just incredibly powerful. You can get where you need to be. Jobs are good, and it's very hard to screen out. And
good for denying primary and scoring certain cards.
yeah, absolutely.
I was about to
Denzians
say,
of the
it's
War.
that meme, isn't it? Of the when you're pointing at my eyes. This is my objective now.
Look at me. Look at me. I hold the objective now.
Yeah.
It's the that one there. Perfect. Yeah, I don't think there's really much that you can go for. I mean, you can advance and charge with the stratagem. You can give your abilities more AP, but I think the one that is most sort of, I'm going to slam that down at least twice. Absolutely going to be the deep strike within 3 inches. I wish you could vect that for Gene Silicon. Oh, I guess you can.
I was going to say,
but it's only strat number 4, isn't it?
And we didn't discuss it, did we? But
that just talks about how good GSE are. That's not even on the list of things that I'd probably
for an
bet.
army which wants to drop down and then fire off loads of demo charges in 4 different targets from 3 inches away. That's quite good, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't worry, guys. They only hit on 5s. There's no way they can be good. Right, guys, right? I'm looking forward to play against Tom. Please play a game to Tom.
Well, I do need to play.
He won't play with GSE at the moment.
You what? Sorry.
He won't play with GSE at the moment.
He's on the Votan train.
Well, just play him at an event. And then
we are going to the same event in 2 weekends' time. It's like a 24-man event. So there's
I'll just meet him in the final then.
Or round 2, which seems more likely.
Oh, you mean the captain of the submarine, Chris?
Yeah.
I only play.
I forgot about that.
Losing streak.
God,
6-0, baby, so far in 10th.
I'm fuming already. Absolutely fuming. Lovely. Well, back on track. Thousand Suns. Thousand Suns have quite a lot of good stuff in their book. They're not as good as people had initially thought them to be. I had also pegged them as sort of like the second best. Once we were sort of like a week into 10th edition, they looked quite scary. Not really seeing them as much as I'd expected to, which is quite interesting. Maybe when some armies see a round of nerfs, they'll be one of the top dogs there. But the big sort of damage threat that I see in that book is you take Magnus, and he gives you +1 hit and +1 to wound to all psychic weapons. You can use your army ability to give them devastating wounds, sustained hits, lethal hits, any of the 3 to all psychic weapons. And you put a 10-man Terminator brick next to Magnus. And then you spend a CP on Ensorcelled Infusion. And that makes them all their weapons, all their bolt weapons, effectively, psychic, and gives them strength 5. Which means suddenly you're wounding things on 4s like Terminators, and you're +1 to hit and wound, so you're actually wounding them on 3s. You're wounding big knights on 5s. You can have lethal hits. You can have devastating wounds. It just turns the unit from being sort of very mild slaps to oh god, they're killing me, which is a great combination to have. Do we have anyone who's playing Thousand Suns actively at the moment? Because I do need to.
No, Lee's not that. Lee's our Thousand Suns player, but he's not.
Yeah, he's been playing some Chaos Knights with Fate Weaver, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was Thousand Suns, but it was our first ever game of 10th, so we were more focusing on you can do what or you can't do what.
Rapid Ingress, what?
Yeah, Lee Churchill played them at the weekend, and he was just like. He just kept looking over at me and my table going, they can do all this shit. Like, what?
Yeah, the best armies in the game do seem to have that ability to be like, hold on, you can do what?
Yeah.
Of course, some of that is just Eldar being like, you can do what? You can reroll your dice, can you? Great.
Keep rerolling, mate. Yeah, why not?
To be fair, for T-Suns, it's still simpler than bloody Cabal points from last time.
Oh, don't worry, they've still got Cabal points.
Oh no, sure, but I mean the way it was in last edition, you would pull up a chair and go and spend 20 minutes in the psychic phase.
Yeah, I guess that's less the Cabal points and more the Cabal plus spell combination. But you're absolutely right. They're psychic.
Oh, the Cabal player.
Yeah. Yes. Lovely. All right, perfect. Well, I think we've gone through all the important ones. What we'll do is we'll go through any questions in the Discord. If there's any in there that you want us to talk about that we haven't gone to, quick chuck it in the chat in the next couple of minutes. We'll get to it after we've done the questions, and then we'll call it a wrap there, and we can all go to beddy buys because we're all old men and we need our beauty sleep. Some of us more than others. Lovely stuff.
I've got one question here from Bloodrender. What are your preferred ways to go about adapting lists?
I think we talked about that one last week. Am I?
Oh, did you? Yeah, that was on the. It was on the 11th, to be fair, which is literally.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. When playing a predominantly shooting, this is from Ultimate Funk. When playing a predominantly shooting or melee, I guess, army, how much thought should you give to the other side of things? Is it ever worth popping a couple of melee units in your Gunfest army, or some shooter units in your melee army? Is it better to sprinkle a couple in, or just double down on your army strength?
I have strong thoughts on this. Do you want to go first, Chris?
So you can tell me I'm wrong. Excellent.
No, well,
I have the correct guys having different opinions here.
So I think that it depends entirely on what your book has to offer. I think so. Like you take Tau, a classic example, and in their shooting army, you could put in the Kroot because they have a better combat than a Fire Warrior, but that isn't why you're putting Kroot into your list. But conversely, if you put, and this was in 9th, if you put the that good all singing commander in, actually he was able to deal a lot of damage. He offered you that extra dimension. So from my perspective, and this is, everyone has list styles that they like. I hate not having that counter charge unit. I hate the fact that I'm going to try and blow you off the table, but if you get there, I'm kind of stuffed. So I would, whatever army I've got, I would try and lean in to having just something that could shift it, but it has to be good at the job. It has to be actually effective at that role, and it also has to fit into your overall game plan of how you're trying to win the game. But yeah, that's kind of me.
Chris, this is why you're right. I absolutely agree. It's a little different in 10th edition because there's not a lot of good melee in the game right now. Let me just think. I don't think I had any. I kind of had melee in my Eldar list in that the Wraith Guard shoots in combat.
Best combat army in the game.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Obviously, they were never a counter charge unit, but I did charge with them, so that is something.
Yeah.
I think in 10th edition you can get away with having no melee, and that's really sad. And I think that is going to change over the next 6 to 8 months. We will see more skew away from shooting. People will learn the melee combat phase better. Hopefully, the balance readdresses some things. Some of the worse armies, like World Eaters, in terms of like worse equipped for 10th edition, get a new lease on life when they're able to. As terrain formats adapt as well, we'll probably see a lot more like real punishing angles when people realize, going first and shooting my opponent off the board kind of gets old real quick. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of. I never go more than like an 80-20 split if I can help it. 10th edition notwithstanding. So if I was playing a melee army, I'd want at least 20% of my army able to do pretty decent.
Keeps your opponent honest, doesn't it? There's nothing better than playing an opponent and you're all combat excellent. I'm just going to stand out in the open and blast you, as if they've got a little bit of shooting. Like, well, I can't actually just throw this unit out in the open.
I 100% agree. Like, I think orcs are the exception because they're so fast and they cover the entire board. But any time I've played a pure melee army in 9th edition, I've kind of just been like, cool. So this is a free game. I just need to play it out correctly. And then, I don't have to think too much. And I can go into the next round with a little bit more brain power than I might have done if I'd had to play something a little more difficult. If you're playing a full melee army and you don't have the ability to shoot, you're going to get to turn 3. They're going to be stood on an objective. You can't meaningfully reach them unless you've somehow positioned incredibly and your opponent can't respond to that. And vice versa, if you're playing an all-shooting army and something just gets close, but it's at an angle that you can't reach because of the shooting. I really did enjoy having 2 melee commanders in my Tau. I had Farsight and I had the reroll hits and wounds flamer guy. the reroll hits and wounds flamer guy he'd pick up units in the shooting phase, and then I could fire and fade him closer, and then I'd charge something as well. And just like that positional play that you get from killing stuff after fighting them really makes a difference in terms of getting your opponents off objectives, especially now that objective secured. There we go. Now that that's gone and you've just got OC, having a model like an OC1 model suddenly is less.
Yeah,
is less important because you can just leave them on one model and you're like, cool, you don't get the objective. So I absolutely agree with your point.
and I'd add that in this current world of shooting, if you're looking to add combat, a really helpful thing is actually just that it's providing reach for your army. So from an Eldari perspective, you take like striking scorpions, they don't really do much because there's no redeploy before knowing who's going first, or heaven forbid howling banshees. Like they just don't offer anything. But solitaire, like solitaire goes far, has precision, gives you that opportunity to get to those really key characters that maybe you can't draw an angle on. The Incarn for the teleporting. You shoot something, Incarn appears and then gets to charge, call out a challenge, blah, 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 kill the character. Like those sorts of things where you've got reach. It's not so much about the age of that big 10-man possessed block that are going to just come through and smash face.
They are one of the few melee units you might still see in 10th edition, so that was an unfortunate example.
Well, I disagree, because when I played it, it was shit. So, but I think those guys that can sneak into small spaces, I think they're far more useful.
Yeah, Solitaire is an absolute badass, and I'd love to fit it into more of my lists. It was one of the most fun models that I used when I was playing.
In an Eldar list, it's just so expensive.
The problem is it's 150 points. I will absolutely pay 115. That's 1.5 in case I slurred my words. But the problem is you kind of got to put it in a transport as well, and at that point you're like, ooh, it's getting pricey. Because I'd love to put it in one of the Harlequin transports, but then what am I putting in with it? 5 Harlequins?
They might have low octave.
They do, but just the extra reach you get from the transport, being able to positionally move the transport up to a staging ruin and then get out of the transport, and it's very difficult for your opponent to deal with that, even if they have melee, because they have to go and kill the transport. Like, oh, cool, I can't kill the thing inside in the melee phase as well. So I found it difficult to fit the Solitaire in, as fun as it was to use. Lovely stuff. Any thoughts on that, or you just want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, I guess one of the things I'm probably one of my weakest bits is list building, but I think one of the interesting, or the way I kind of look at it is around build arounds. So it's something I used to do in Magic the Gathering, is you look at what's the best card you can get in X color. Can I make that card exponentially better through other things that I put in that army? So what synergies can you pull up? And that's kind of how I tend to build. And whether that is, and so there's that kind of exponential leaning into that strength, and then you add also, can I score points with this? So then it's a mixture of that strength and units that can just do bits for you, really, not expensive, etc. But that's about really the kind of generally the way I build. Cool. And then that's all the questions we have there, but we do have one in chat. What do you think of the new Tyranid sculpts?
I'm very excited. It almost made me carry on painting my Tyranids. Almost. They are probably the army that I would look to be building up alongside.
Yeah, what happened, man? You and me, we did the Nid reveal.
We did.
Day one. And you were there talking about.
I have nearly finished my second zone trope, so just another 16 to go. No, what happened was I started painting Eldar, but
I wonder why.
Over the summer holidays, that's my goal. Obviously, do we know when the codex is due?
I think it was just
September,
late
I think,
summer.
October.
Yeah, early autumn.
I'm hesitant to start painting too much but I think I'll just over the holidays I'll just paint a variety of things and we'll see. I
think they've said that data sheets are meant to stay pretty much the same, so it feels like you're more safe to paint things with the codex coming up than you were in previous editions.
Yeah. They have a habit of making zone tropes really, really good anyway.
Yeah,
they are pretty good at the moment. I'm interested to see how much damage 18 of them can do.
Well, I was really impressed when I played Ben in that last event. Just how much they could put out.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Big
Yeah, I do
range
like
ones.
them. Quite like them coming in from reserve at the moment, because they've only got a range of 24, I think it is.
24,
So
yeah,
they
that
come
was
in,
the
they
issue.
come
I
in,
was
they get
able
that shot.
to space it out.
24 inches.
Link them up with a Zoe throat to get the reroll ones to hit, get the Pyrovoy in there to remove cover, and you take down one thing that you wanted to kill, and it's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I quite like the sculpts. I think they look really good. The only one that I have a problem with is the Gene Stealers. I just think Gene Stealers look goofy AF, and they have done for a while. I would love to see Gene Stealers like look scary. Like, they're supposed to be like found on, I always think of Space Hulk, right, in my head. These Gene Stealers like lurking around this ruined spaceship, and I think that's so cool. I'm not saying make them look like xenomorphs. Do not do that. But I just think they're just big, stupid, bulbous heads and that like really long arms. Like I have long arms and I look gangly, right? These things should
I'm
look
not
gangly.
scary
They should.
looking.
Yeah,
There
I'm
is
not
actually
scary,
a bit
am
of
I?
a resemblance. I'm just looking now.
Oh yeah, totally. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm just a Gene Stealer. But yeah, I don't think they're great. Quite like the Hormigans, like just different styles. Hopefully they don't fall over when you move them now. That would be
The
much
classic.
appreciated. The Lictors, yeah, really like that. I like the newer Lictor. Some people think it looks too sexy.
Jack.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, what was the other ones? Pyrovores, yeah, cool. Pyrovores look good. Interesting new aesthetic because I've never seen a spider looking Tyranid before, so that's a completely new vibe.
Yep.
What else was there?
What was is it the Norn
Oh yeah.
emissary or simulator? Those were the ones I was like, yes.
Man, you know what that looks like to me? That looks like I'm on TTS and I've picked up a Hive Tyrant and then I've tried to scale it up.
You've just pressed the plus like
It
10
just-
times.
Yeah, I would have liked some like I'm just not hyped on that. And hopefully it's not very good. So I don't have to play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not wowed by any of the sculpts. The Gene Stealers, I really like the classic design. Just they've got that nostalgia for me. And these ones, like they tick the box, but there's nothing exciting about them. There's no like interesting poses.
This is very similar, as Ella Whistle says. This is very similar to what.
All I want is I want them to reprint the Space Hulk Gene Stealers. Is that too much to ask? Those were fantastic, and I do have them, but I'm never going to buy more because it'll probably cost me like 100 quid for another 15 or something. Then moving on, both sets of gaunts look good. I like what they've done with these. They've just sort of modernized them. I'm not a fan of the splooge cannon that the Termagants can have. I'm glad they brought back.
No! What you mean the cock cannon? There's the cock
I didn't
cannon
say that. This is
and
a
the chode cannon.
PG friendly show.
The
Stop your fucking swearing.
Cannon.
Jack
PG.
was the one that spotted it for me. Very funny.
Yeah, that's a miss for me. But
I can't wait to magnetize all my Termagants. No.
Who magnetizes? Just have a crippling addiction and buy more models. That's the answer. Yeah, the healthy answer. The Lictor, I think the new Lictor looks so good. I can kind of take or leave the Brain Boy, whatever they've called that, the Neurolictor.
The Neurolictor.
Yeah,
so I'm not. Synapse. Cool.
Sounds like it's going to be key for Battle Shock, and we know that's a really important part of the game. So
I'm not super in love with Deathleaper either. I don't love the model. I don't love the cape.
Oh, the cape's great.
But just the standard Lictor, oh man, that looks so good. Like I'm a really big fan of that. That's something I'm looking forward to. Then we've got Biovores and Pyrovores. What the fuck, Games Workshop? Why did you make these two models look so fucking similar? The difference is a blast back plate. Like, cool.
I mean, I'm a big fan of it being one kit.
I'd be fine with that. They just need something more to distinguish them. Like the gun is slightly different, but it has bulbous saps on. So it's. I genuinely thought it was the same model. I was looking between the shares, like, what the fuck's the difference? And because it's a different angle, and then I was like, oh shit, no, it's got the tail that sort of goes up behind it. Sure. And also, what base is that on? That looks absolutely massive. Is that like an 80 mil? I think it's bigger than a Dreadnought base.
No.
Yeah, I think so. Look at it in the picture, compare it to the 25 mils. It's like, I could be wrong. It looks massive to me. And then the Norn units, fine. I don't love them, don't hate them.
It's very kaiju, isn't it? Very kaiju-esque.
Yeah, how I feel about them will very much depend on the data sheet.
Again.
because I absolutely love running Monster Mash NIDs. And it's never been about the look of the models. Like, I don't think the Tyrannifex looks particularly amazing, but that's my favorite big bug because it's so hard to get through. 9th edition and 10th edition. Like, the coolest big bugs aren't the ones that I run. Like, I love the Morlock, and that looks incredible, but I ran it.
In the game,
I ran it and did very well with it, but then I immediately took it out of my list because I was like, actually, there's other things I can do with this, like 125 points or whatever it was. So yeah,
which is so cheap at that in 9th as well. 125 points was not expensive, and I still didn't take it.
Buddy, Monster Mash NIDs was wild. Carnifexes were so cheap. I think they were 100 points base, and then you gave them like 25 points worth of upgrades. You're like, that'll do. Just going to sprinkle those in my list. I think I ran 8 at one event. It was beautiful.
9th.
Yeah, 9th. Good times. A couple more comments in chat. Chris says they all look like solid updates, but the crab cannons. People are saying that they're too different, can't win. Yeah, that's fair. It is very different.
It's very different. I think it's super cool, though, right? I think it's.
They look way better than the old models. Like, I will absolutely give them that. It's just not. It doesn't do it for me personally, but that's okay.
Yeah, at least they're not smiling anymore.
Yeah.
The weird goofy smile.
Yeah. Elden Warden says going to put his Darkkin on the table for the first time at 2,000 points on Sunday versus Custodes. Wish you luck and pain. I wish you luck and I wish them pain. Or pain for you if that's what you're into. That is very Drukhari. Yeah. But I think it's more inflicting it that they really, really enjoy. But I think Drukhari are a lot of fun to play a couple of games with. I think the longevity of their play might be a little less exciting until they get a codex, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun finding those angles, whizzing around the board, and putting some really efficient shots down.
You rolling your hits.
Yeah, boy. Lovely stuff. That is all I have there. Any closing thoughts from the two of you lovely gentlemen?
Chris says, wasn't there some mention of mind control for the Neurodictor? Hot takes on what this would be in game terms.
Let's have a look here.
I vaguely remember something about it. The way I read whatever they wrote was like it sounded like Battleshock.
Yeah.
Which
we have seen mind control. My favorite version of was, I think it might have been the Changeling in 9th edition, where you just on a dice roll you got to shoot an enemy's model, or it was like shoot one gun or make one attack with a melee weapon. So it's like always going to shoot. And if you're playing against knights, you just go, oh cool, your volcano lance. Let me just shoot that at one of your other models. Oh cool, it dies. Neat.
8th edition GSC had that ability as a spell, and that was fun.
Yeah.
Well, it was like went off on like an 8. So
but it's never been in the game since I've started playing again. It's never been in the game and been good, but it has been in the game and been funny. Which
when that time it goes off.
Oh yeah, it makes a great story. Lovely stuff.
Cool.
All right, let's wrap it up there. Thank you all for joining us. This has been episode 47. Tune in next week. We will be talking about the teams event that the boys went and had a great time at, and join us in 3 weeks for episode 50. More coming on that one.